We could see if, from a halakhic standpoint, it could be that a non-Jew, a Ben Noah, could become an atheist, that he could indirectly fulfill the 7 Noahide commandments. My question is, what is perhaps your hashkafa, your position on that question?
I've tried to process this topic because I understand the difficulty. I'll try to give people context. What exists is a series of laws for humanity. These are known as the Noahide laws. One of these laws is not to commit idolatry. What does it mean not to commit idolatry? And here comes the question that Ephraim is asking, which is, does this mean believing in God? Because prohibiting idolatry is different from commanding belief in God. And this is where we actually see, let's say, a makloket, a debate among the sages of Israel. If the non-Jew has the obligation to believe in God, I lean toward the position that they do not. That there can be a Ben Noah, a Noahide, who is an atheist. I think I lean more toward this line of thought from Rambam. It's language, first of all, from the Tosefta, and that's how it appears in Sanhedrin. It's a prohibitive law. In general, the Noahide laws, except for dinim, are prohibitive laws. That is, you must not commit idolatry. But nobody gets involved. There's even a discussion about whether a Noahide can engage in shitaf. That is, if they can believe in God and in another figure as well.
A lesser God. That is exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
There is one. It's in, where is it? In the Megillah Tractate. Page 13, 14, 13, somewhere around there. That says, everything shown in Zara's work is called Yehudi. It says, everyone who, how do you say it? Everyone who denies idolatry is called a Jew. How so? Someone who is not a Jew and is therefore an atheist, for example. Because what is an atheist? I'll explain in a moment. And so, if they oppose idolatry, now they have become a Jew. This is not what this phrase means. What this phrase means is that if a person understands that idolatry makes no sense, that is part of Jewish values. And that's where I think the atheist comes in. Because it's different for a person who doesn't practice idolatry than for a person who actively opposes idolatry. And in my view, those who most strongly oppose idolatry are atheists. More than anyone else, the atheist is the one who, by definition, understands that all those ways of expressing God are tiny. They're nothing, right? They're constructs of human beings. That's denying idolatry. When an atheist says no Zeus, even the God of Israel, because that's the problem many times for us as Jews. It's that since we don't define God, many times he is perceived as a small God who can be denied that easily. So, the atheist, I think, is someone who has actually come to an understanding very close to monotheism. Rambam mentions something similar in the opening chapters of Moreh Nevuchim. That's why I think so, that a Noahide can become an atheist. Because he is the one who broke with the concept of idolatry and with this tiny God, because beyond the atheist, there is a giant God. His idea of infinity is far greater than how a religious person conceives God. So, that's why I think I lean more towards the position that even an atheist can also be a Noahide.
Very well. I have the same opinion, Jacko. I also lean more towards this position. And that the atheist can also have, for example, as Rambam says, that he doesn't abandon the path, that he can be in the world to come if he fulfills things indirectly. I think that only, and as you explained there from Sanhedrin, we learn that you would have a problem with cursing, maybe the divine name, with cursing. However, there, between the identity of believing or not believing, it's still very rare to find maybe rational atheists who understand a respectful position and not suddenly arrive there, like to Shem, Esbo, which is about cursing the name of Shem. But on the side of not committing idolatry, I think the same. However, as I told you, even the position of Rav Ramosh finds, he doesn't say it's permitted or forbidden. It's just an opinion he gives. And the same with Rav Serb, and the Gemara leaves it open. It has opened the topic, but on the side of cursing, maybe there could be a problem with that.
Good point. I think there are, actually there are types of atheists. The atheist who curses God. That's one for the audience, right? Among the other Noahide laws, there is one that is forbidden. Giduf. It is forbidden to curse God. Yes, Bekat Hashem it's called. It's a euphemism. But there are atheists who are actually at a shallow level of atheism. They are atheists with a narrow mindset. And that's why they curse this transcendent idea. But those who have already moved past that level, I mean, they've already broken out of all religious systems. Those people don't even curse God anymore. I mean, that's why actually the one who is closest to monotheism, to the essence of because God is undefinable. And the atheist actually is very close to this idea that God, in reality, all those definitions that were sold to him in religion are not true. That idea is a very close one. What is indeed a difficulty for Fahim is that many prophets spoke about the knowledge of Hashem spreading throughout the world and that people will want to follow the ways of Hashem. So here there really is a prophetic difficulty. But maybe that's it. It's this meta idea of God that maybe one day we will reach. Maybe when the world becomes atheist, post-atheism will be that. I don't know. So here, we really need to understand how the ideas are reconciled.
Yes, exactly. Even with what you were saying just now about the shetuf, that also a non-Jew could believe in a shetufin, for example, like just seeing someone as a messiah, a teacher, a prophet, but not seeing them as a god. Maybe through the halakha, according to some opinions, that person could qualify. But it would come down to the same thing, because there are a lot of people, for example, I have friends who are Christian, Muslim, whatever, but they make the distinction between the two texts, right? The problem is when maybe someone who sees a certain person as the Messiah becomes, according to their belief, hostile toward Jews or other people. I mean, against people of another religion. That would be, let's say, the complexity I see there. Other than that, it seems perfect to me because the spreading of Shem and B'nai Noach doesn't involve something a person can't do directly, but in the long run, it will lead them there. There's a phrase that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs used to say that atheists in el plan de, maybe in supervision, not in Libra al Beltran, but in a supervision, what he has seen is that many atheists have raised their voices against the bad things that religion has done in the name of religion. That they have brought in the name of religion, but you bring something bad. So it doesn't make sense for you to speak in the name of a religion and bring something bad. He said that the good thing he sees in that plan of Shem and in the atheists is that they fought against these inconsistencies. And nowadays you can see it in societies.
I think atheism is one of the signs that the level of the human spirit in the world as a whole has risen a lot. Honestly, let's be sincere. Those in the chat who believe in God, the God of religion is very small. The world of a religious person is tiny. The atheist breaks with that because God is much bigger than that. That the atheist doesn't conceive of it is another thing, or doesn't want to conceive of it, or hasn't reached that point yet. But the atheist has already broken the first barrier of the God of religion, which is an idolatrous God. I don't know how else to say it. Honestly, it's a tiny God. Well, Ephraim, it's really good to see you around here. We're in touch for other broadcasts.
All right, great. Regards.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't think that I'm in favor of atheism, okay? I don't want to sell atheism. No, I'm not interested. I think atheism is a mistake. I believe there is a God, the God of Israel and all that. What I'm aware of is that atheism has a role in this world. And the role is to break these religious frameworks that have a tiny conception of the transcendent. That's the role of atheism. Yo no pretendo to motivate people to be atheists. I, on the other hand, motivate people to fulfill the Noahide commandments. I see a logic in having emunah in Hashem. That is something like a trust, a faithfulness to Hashem. I am in favor of monotheism, that is, of one single God. I am not in favor of atheism. But I understand that atheism has a role, and I understand that one can be a Noahide and an atheist. I understand that the world is moving in a certain direction. We are in a process of historical dialectic, so don't worry if you felt a bit tense that there is a rabbi telling us to be atheists. No, relax, I'm not selling it to you because I don't think it's right to be an atheist. What I believe is that monotheism is right. Atheism is one of the tools for humanity to refine very small ideas and to be able to take on much bigger things as human beings in a future that will be monotheistic, in my opinion. Okay? That's the end of that clarification, that disclaimer.